So we have yet another edition of confused Americans in Europe, European things that would send Americans into a coma, whatever you want to call it. We have another edition of Americans experiencing culture shock in Europe. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this first video.
It's in the Netherlands that would nearly put North Americans into a coma.
Just so you know, your hair looks a little strange from the back. Maybe you should go back and ask them to fix it up a bit. Thanks. Graag gedaan.
So I hear a lot about Dutch directness, but honestly, in my experience, that wasn't the case at all. I never had any interactions like this my whole entire time in the Netherlands. And I think perhaps that could be a function of where I was in the Netherlands. I feel like no matter what place you're in, generally people in larger cities tend to be a lot more assertive and direct, because that's just how life functions whenever you're living at a faster pace. But I never had any just outright crazy, egregious encounters like this that perpetuated this notion of Dutch directness. And to be fair, someone that looks like this, and this is no knock to him or anything, his hair looks absolutely phenomenal, by the way, it looks very healthy, but someone who looks like this is probably going to elicit a lot of attention no matter where in the world they go. Now, whether people are willing to vocalize their thoughts on his physical appearance, that's a whole different matter. But in my time in the Netherlands, I never experienced anything like this unless it was complimentary in nature. So I did have people in the locker room at the gym, for example, tell me that I had a nice physique, but I never had anyone just stop me in public to tell me that I looked weird. I don't know if that's something that's happening to a lot of expats in the Netherlands or if that's happening to a lot of Dutch people, but that just never happened to me. I think part of why this may seem to be the case as well is because Dutch is a low context language. So it naturally tracks that if you're translating something directly from Dutch to English, which to be fair is also a low context language, it would come across as direct to the extent that it may even seem a bit rude. But in my experience, in real life, not in the YouTube comment section or throughout the internet, in real life, day-to-day living, I never had an encounter like this. So I think the Dutch directness thing is severely overblown, but let me know if you disagree with me in the comments. On to the next video.
Culture shocks living in the UK as an American. I'm going to start talking about these more often because they happen to me daily still. Even after living here 7 years, I don't know. You can take the girl out of America, but you can't take the Southern American girl out of me, right? So today my husband and I were out shopping, just walking around town, and I popped into an antique shop and was looking at this beautiful display of like china and teacups and stuff. And this lady just comes right in front of me and just starts rummaging around. And I'm just like, hi, hello. But I didn't say that. I just waited for her to finish and move on to her shopping. But it happens to me in the supermarkets too. And at first I thought...
So as far as people cutting in front of you to look at stuff or whatever, again, I would like to know exactly where she is in the UK. I obviously don't know nearly as much about UK culture as I do about Dutch culture because I never lived in the UK. But if she's in London, then this would track. This would track because, again, people in bigger cities just by and large tend to be a lot more assertive overall. They're more likely to shoulder check you when you're walking on the street or on the sidewalk. They're more likely to honk their horns at you, things of that nature. So I can see how something like this, especially coming from the American South, would be very, very jarring initially, or even over time. It could still be a very jarring experience, but even if she were to go to a place like New York City within the US, she would still encounter a lot of that sort of behavior.
It's just a fluke that a few people did that, but it happens all the time. I've become used to it. But I'll just be standing there at the supermarket looking on the shelf for what I need, and someone will just come and stand right in front of me and get what they need and go on. And I'm just like, okay. I know for me, if someone's looking at some place that I need to get something from, I'll just pretend like I'm looking at something else until they get what they need and move on, and then
I'm not gonna lie, that's very relatable. That might just be kind of a social anxiety sort of thing because that's very relatable for me. But on the off chance that I don't do that, I'll just say excuse me. A simple excuse me will suffice.
I'll get in there and get what I need. But yeah, most people don't do that here. So maybe I'm just being too sensitive. If you're an American, what do you think about that? Like, do you do that? Is it just me? And if you're British or from the UK, am I just being too sensitive and I just need to like get on with my shopping and get out of the way because people got to go? Maybe it is me. Anyway, that is my life.
So another thing I want to add, and this is kind of piggybacking off of something I said in a recent video, but I think it's a lot different when you're a woman versus when you're a man, especially a man like myself. In that, look, I don't think I'm a very physically intimidating or imposing person. Maybe if you saw me in person, you might think, this guy doesn't look very approachable. But the point is, just the fact that I'm a man means that I'm physically larger and I take up more space. And because of that, I feel like people subconsciously give me more space compared to, let's say, for example, my girlfriend. So that's kind of my theory for this. And of course, there's also the component of, oh, this person is larger, therefore, they could cause me physical harm, so I'm going to kind of tread lightly around them. And I did notice as well that as I put on more muscle throughout the years, things like what she's talking about don't really happen to me anymore. And again, I don't think I'm the most physically imposing guy or the most intimidating looking guy, but I'm also not the least physically imposing guy like I used to be when I was a teenager. So I think that plays a very big role, and that's completely irrespective of where you are in the world. But let me know your thoughts on that. Is that something that you've experienced where you live, or if you've been to the UK or live in the UK, is that something you encounter on a daily basis? Because I don't know, that's just not something that I've personally encountered a whole lot. On to the next video.
The biggest cultural shocks in Germany was when I just moved here and got invited to a birthday party. Where I come from, when we are invited to a party, that means that there will be a feast. Starters, appetizers, soups, salads, main courses, desserts, couple kinds of each, the whole shenanigan. So I assumed the same would happen here, so I was very excited to try all kinds of German food. And I even skipped lunch on that day. Rule number 2 is that in our culture, the birthday kid always gets a present. So I arrive at the party with my present, I give my present, enter the apartment, enter the room where everybody's gathered. And what I see on the table is some dough sticks, some chips, some beers, and some drinks.
So this kind of reminds me of something that I heard about in the Netherlands. Again, this is something I didn't experience myself, but I've heard in the Netherlands, there's this thing where when it's someone's birthday, basically everyone sits in a circle and eats, I want to say it was some kind of sandwich or something like that, or crackers with cheese and some kind of meat. If you're Dutch, you know what I'm talking about. I've heard it referred to as the circle of hell multiple times. So if you're Dutch, then please inform me in the comments below. But it seems like in Germany, they have a pretty similar tradition. And I think this comes from those two cultures and maybe some of the surrounding cultures being very frugal. I won't say stingy, I'll say frugal with their resources, with food being no exception. You won't really see an excess of anything in the Netherlands. So I have to assume Germany is pretty similar, but correct me if I'm wrong in the comments.
That maybe food will come a bit later, it's okay. So I started mingling, chatting, talking, and just meeting some new people. But no food came ever. We were there the whole night, just chatting. There was a bit of music until maybe 10 p.m. Then Ruhezeit, so there was no music after that. No dancing, just talking the whole night. I mentioned no dancing because that's another thing that we do in our culture. When we go to a party, that means that you will eat, but then you will also dance and party and have fun. But here we had our seminars and workshops. It would break down into subgroups, and then we would just chat for some time, and then you would reshuffle and then continue chatting. It can also be exciting, of course.
Wait, did he say seminars and workshops when referring to a birthday party? That's kind of crazy. So as a reference point, I don't know what culture he's from. Clearly he's not from the US, but in the US, a child's birthday party will generally involve birthday cake, probably pizza, and usually it'll be hosted at some sort of maybe trampoline park, or I think I had a few birthday parties at this roller skating rink, things of that nature. Or you might have a party at home. But this almost seems like it was more of an excuse for the adults to just get together. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting from this, but I don't know, I could be completely wrong, or maybe I'm just misperceiving what he's saying, or maybe his experience was an isolated incident.
Because I got to meet a lot of new people, but it was a cultural shock because it was not what I expected. On the way back home, I was crossing Alexanderplatz, so I just had one big hearty kebab because I was so freaking hungry.
So let me know in the comments what a traditional birthday party, whether it be a child's birthday party or an adult's birthday party, looks like in your culture, because I haven't had an actual birthday party since I was 12 years old. And again, my 12th birthday party was at a skating rink called Interskate. And I want to say we had pizza and birthday cake. So again, very traditional. Everyone gathers around, sings happy birthday. And then beyond that, everyone kind of just goes and does their own thing, has fun, whatever. The adults sit at the table and talk. Let me know what it's like in your culture, in your country. On to the next video.
Culture shocks as an American living in Poland. Number 1, pumping gas. I was shocked that you cannot pay at the pump like you do in the US. You'll first have to pump gas and then go inside the store to pay. Imagine something like this in Colorado. People just pump and go and never be seen again.
Wait, hold on. So So you pump your gas first and then you pay. So you go into the store with your receipt and then you pay. I'm assuming they have cameras there, so they'll probably get a picture of your license plate. But I'm not gonna lie, this would not work in the US. This would most certainly not work in the US because too many people have fake license plates or outdated license plates. That is a thing in the US, by the way, that people will steal other people's license plates and put them on their cars, especially when they know they're gonna be doing stuff like that. So this tells me, because I actually don't know a whole lot about Poland, this tells me that Poland is a very high trust society. And I could see something like this working in Asia, for example. I'm here in Vietnam. I could see something like that working in Vietnam or maybe even Thailand. But this would never, ever work in the US. Ever.
Number 2, stoplights. Aside from them being super close to you, you cannot turn on red, which is super annoying. You'll have to wait and wait until the light turns green in order to make your turn, which is...
So he's saying it's annoying, and I understand what he means from a driver's perspective, especially if you're in a rush and there's clearly no one coming. But at the same time, I think this rule is worth it just for the simple fact that I have almost been mowed down many, many times from people turning right on red. Whether as a pedestrian, as a cyclist, or even as a driver, I have had many near misses, and a lot of them came from people turning right on red when they weren't actually in the clear. So I think this is a pretty logical rule, and I didn't realize that until I went to Europe, the Netherlands specifically, and realized that this makes your experience as a pedestrian and cyclist much more seamless, that I won't say just became an advocate for it, but I understood it enough to not complain about it. Granted, I never drove in the Netherlands, so I guess I can't really speak on it too much, but as a pedestrian, I definitely understand it.
Is really, really inconvenient. And number 3, I was shocked that so many people are walking. No matter the time, day, or weather, you will always see someone walking somewhere. Do people here just not value the convenience of cars? Who knows?
Okay, he has to be rage baiting with that one. That's kind of a crazy way to end the TikTok. I feel like he's trying to elicit engagement, even if it's negative engagement. But the thing is, honestly, when I went back to the US earlier this year and visited, that was one of the things I missed the most, was just seeing other pedestrians. And honestly, being the only pedestrian somewhere is really off-putting, especially at night, because it can make a statistically safe area feel incredibly unsafe because someone can just basically snatch you off the street. Again, as a grown man, that's very unlikely to happen to me, but let's say someone like my girlfriend, I wouldn't feel comfortable with her being the only pedestrian out and about, even if we're in a safe area, because someone can just snatch her up, put her in the trunk of a car, and I guess go pump gas and pay inside the gas station. I don't know.